Hello, it's Joyful Hermit. It's evening here, and I haven't been on for 2 or 3 days. I just wanted to update you. I did hear from, or saw some pictures from Anton, the Hermit, and he is in um, Papua, Indonesia. And he's had his first big harvest helping people there learn to farm. So I'm glad that I finally was able to make connection with Joyful Hermit. Um, I think it comes under Joyful Hermit Religious or something with the Facebook. Anyway, it's under Joyful Hermit Religious Community or a religious or something to do with that. To see the photo of Anton, who had been a priest for maybe 3 years and then left that to become a hermit, and has had some um, donations, and he has a hermitage being built. It's very simple and plain out in the countryside in Papua, Indonesia, I believe is the name of the area. So pray for him and his good works that he's doing with people there, teaching them how to grow food and a healthier way of farming. And I'm trying to think of, Father Vincent is making a little bit of progress. He still needs prayer and is still drinking hot water with lemon and ginger in it and is on medication yet. He's very ill with coughing and still with fever. So please keep praying for him. He's in Nigeria at a new assignment that he drove through dust storm and heat in his old car that had no air conditioning, and it seared his lungs or something terrible, his throat. So he does need our prayers for healing. But he said he thought he was doing a little bit better. He emailed another short email. So, and then I had been to see a nurse practitioner yesterday, and it's sort of disconcerting in a way. Um, she didn't really have anything much to say other than they think that this is a severe kidney injury that came rather suddenly. And because 6 months or so ago I had a score of 90 GFR, which is a very healthy kidney for someone my age, very healthy kidneys. And this just came suddenly, and it's a bad injury. She says may not know for a long time, if ever, how much is damaged or if it'll work. My GFR was 22 um, yesterday. I mean, it wasn't tested just, but as of a week ago, it was 22, and it hadn't been tested since then. Some of the swelling has gone down. I've lost a lot of weight. You can't tell in my face, but oh my goodness, I had to go do some labs today. And after I saw the pain doctor who has done some research, and he tracked some MRIs I had at the hospital that wasn't very good. And they did MRIs with contrast dye. And he says that is what did this to you. Not the meloxicam. The meloxicam came over time. But since my kidney score was so high the last time I had tests done, 6 or 7 months ago, back in May, I guess 7 months or so, um, that he said it would have been recently when I had these MRIs with a contrast dye. He says the contrast dye would destabilize a kidney. It's very bad for kidneys, that dye is. And he said your meloxicam obviously was stabilized and that the dye threw my system off. So it was human error. I remember them saying they were doing contrast dye, and I didn't know what the difference. This would have been back the week of Thanksgiving when I had to go to that other ER. Um, and I should have gone to the other hospital. I didn't realize that this other hospital had gone downhill so badly with employees and practices, what they were doing. So human error, but God chooses these things for us. I'm convinced of that things happen. And I guess it's forbearance of a sort to accept when there's human error and it causes us potentially the means we're going to pass away. I don't know what's going to happen. The nurse practitioner, I mentioned my terrible lymphatic scores. She says, yes. And I said, well, my kidneys hurt terribly across my kidney area, and my right one in particular. And she says, no, that your kidneys aren't hurting. She said, they're the last things to hurt that you feel, because the kidneys don't have a lot of nerves in them. And she's convinced that I wouldn't feel them now. But I mean, I'm old. I know where my kidneys are. I don't have spine pain off to the right and left. And it's gotten so bad, it's hard for me to stand up for any length of time. I was in terrible pain today with the kidneys. And I've had to lower my pain medicine because the opioids that I was on are the worst for kidneys. But they didn't cause this. It's just if your kidneys are damaged, it's bad for them. But this nurse practitioner says, oh, well, opioids are terrible for your kidneys and liver. My pain doctor says that is such ignorance. I knew it was. I didn't argue with her. She's very young, and the young medical practitioners I have met, such as another nurse practitioner who didn't want me as a patient because was bothered by the medicines I have to be on. And Mayo Clinic expresses it the best online about arachnoiditis, and opioids are the only medicine that will help take the pain off. Now, I've never taken many. I have a very low dose going, even after 36 and a half years, because I tend to prefer having pain all the time, but working with pain management with my mind and distracting my mind and trusting in God. But, and I went for a long time without pain medicine, which was really cruel on the part of the doctors in Indiana that did that. But they're indoctrinated. You can't blame them. They are fed this fear of opioids, which is a fear and concern for people who don't have severe pain. I have never felt high, ever, ever. I wish. But I never take a lot. I've kept, intentionally keep the dose low because I knew years ago I would need room to grow. Since 2009, I was finally given low dose of narcotic pain medication because I thought I was having a breakdown. I couldn't stop crying. I was sick. I was in pain, and I couldn't cope with anything. And it went on for a while. And fortunately, this doctor's nurse said, "Well, no, you're what's wrong with you is you're in too much pain. This is a symptom of being an overload of pain." Well, I was just so used to having to fight my pain alone without any medical help, without medication. And I would be laughed at by doctors in Indiana and nurses. "Oh, you're not getting anything." Or even this guy in high school who I went to school with in high school, he was a doctor then when I went back, and he refused and was convinced I would be an addict. And you will never be an addict if you have legitimate pain. And of course, if you aren't an addictive personality, I'm not. So it just has never been a problem. But it is now, because now I can't take what I need to keep the pain handled. There are a couple of medicines. My pain doctor is doing more research on them. I had already done the research, but I'm going to just have to tough it out until he gets me onto a different medicine that isn't going to zap my kidneys. And it can't be Dilaudid because that's uh, nowhere to be found. There's a lot of shortage in the country because the government has limited manufacturing to protect the people who are taking it who shouldn't be taking it. But of course, they find it on the black market when it's not available by the government. Medicine isn't available. They get it on the black market. And people like me and other people then suffer because we can't get it. So it's a sad situation, but there again, what are we going to do about it? Except it's hard when a medical person is ignorant and thinks that it's opioids that cause these things. Um, and they are terrible for people who don't have pain. They will cause lung problems, addictions, mess with their minds. But if you have severe pain, my surgeon years ago in 87 had a good strong talk with me because, oh no, I don't want anything, Said you'll do more harm to your body if you let this pain rage. And he explained, you are not going to be addicted. You have severe pain. And you're not, and he had me go to different other neurologists and things, get my nerves tested to see if there was anything else. And he says, no, you're going to have to take pain meds the rest of your life. But I wasn't given them then in Indiana. So it's been tough. It's been a tough situation. And I don't want to sound like I'm championing narcotics for the wrong people. But I am protective of people who have something like arachnoiditis. It is hell. It's a beast of pain, and I'm very stoic. I had to try to be stoic for my children and didn't do well enough, obviously. So, because it has caused burnout as adults in them for dealing with it, and sadness too. It was a sad childhood for them, having a mother so in pain and them having all this responsibility themselves, and when they needed more from me. I think that's my interpretation anyway. Um, so it's so now I just sort of have to wait and cope. And it got very hard this afternoon. I called the pain doctors and had even forgotten. You get to the point where you can't think, you can't remember. I have been sobbing, because you lose your capability to manage your emotions. The pain takes over. And I'm experienced with pain management. So I'm talking, this is bad. Normally I could handle it, but I can't because the kidney pain is what's putting me over the top. But I've been in bed for several hours, and the dogs were up here with me. They're so loving, and they sense that I'm not doing well. So, but I didn't recognize myself in the mirror today at this lab. My house is under so much construction that I don't really have a mirror, like a bathroom mirror or anything. So, I had to take this blood test. There was this big mirror, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I looked horrible. And anyway, it was a reality check that I'm not well. And the nurse practitioner is saying that this, my lymphatic system, that is very bad numbers on that, showing some kind of an extreme infection. But she's claiming it's not my kidneys that are infected. She says that the tests came out for those, no stone and no infection. She says, you've got something else going on. And I said, well, can you, have some kind of a test added to see what it is? Is it a blood cancer or something? Or, it's good to know. I'm trying to make plans for I've got sort of a mess on my hands in the temporal world with house and not finished and finances and stuff. So it's stuff to get rid of, and as we always do, and I'm not really well enough to do a whole lot, but um, I she says no. She says your GP's going to have to handle that. I said, well, I don't have one. He's leaving in less than a month, and I can't even get in to see him for this. Um, so I've asked my pain doctor if he could pinch hit for me on that. I don't know. He's swamped with pain patients who can't get medicine that they need. So they put out a piece of paper saying you do your own calling around all the pharmacies to try to find the medicines that are on, you know, back order, they call it. But because there's so many in the country, they said, that are out, and that the pain doctor staff can't possibly make all these calls. So they're asking the patients, and I'm honored to do that. I'm going to start calling tomorrow to see if some of the three different meds that I could take. One I've already been told is nowhere to be found and allotted, but I'll call around and see if I can find what might help, because it's not going to be quality of life if I'm going to suffer like that. Um, and also if I'm not going to find out what the other infection's about. But there again, I have had to think about forbearance. And I'm thinking God really had me do some research on that the other day and recognize that I'm not good at forbearance at all. Um, I could get frustrated with them giving me that dye at my age, contrast dye, in those MRIs, and causing my kidneys to do this. Because when I found out I had a score of 90 GFR just 6 months ago, I thought, wow, that was great. And no one in my family's had this at all. But it's whatever God wants. And I've told Jesus that. And it's whatever level of suffering he wants for me, because, the pain doctor has to do his own research on, and he's going to call a renal specialist to try to find out what opioid would help me, would be okay, the best for my situation, for my kidneys. Um, so in the meantime, then I'm on a lower dose, and it's rugged. And I did end up today having to, and last night I had to take an extra. And I told him, I just, there's only so much I can bear. And he knows me well enough now to know that I would never mess around, and I wouldn't fake anything, that after 36 and a half years of arachnoiditis, I am, by the grace of God, on such a low amount as it is, truly. And I've had those years in which I had to rely on God fully and get my mind off of it, but I would get up and try to do things and do for others and pray. That's our only salvation. If we're in a bad situation that it's hard to get our mind off of ourselves and suffering, is to focus on others and praying for others. So I did find out from the man who took blood today that he has a little 2-year-old who has a rare chromosome disorder. The little boy's name is Leo. He needs prayers. He needs prayers. They're trying to even get him in. He lives in California with his mother. The dad had to come to another state and to get training and education and some job experience. He couldn't get a job in California in this medical field. So he's away from his family to do what he needs to do, but is going to be able to go back in about 3 months, and hopefully then be able to get a job for going to a different area, to get the training and get a job that he needed to get experience so he could be hired where his family lives. So sad stories. A little 2-year-old. It's a bleeding disorder, rare chromosome problem. that this little child, they found out about it when he was, after he was born, when he was circumscribed. He couldn't stop bleeding, this little baby. They couldn't, so that's when they discovered this disorder. So lots of people to pray about. And I met a woman that I was telling everyone in this office. There was another older woman, and the workers there, I said, do not let anyone give you a dye contrast unless you know that your kidneys can handle it, or you're not very old, maybe. But I said, I wouldn't do it unless you're at life or death, have to have it. Because of what happened to me, I explained how bad it is for kidneys. And so this older woman followed me out and said, oh, I'm going to pray for you and tell me more about this. She was older than me, looked younger by now. And I said, well, I'm a person of prayer too. And I said, could you pray for this little boy named Leo? So her name was Eileen. It's amazing when we reach out to others, when we get off ourselves, and it takes effort, because this has been sort of a shock in a way. Just the timing of it and the suffering of it has been the worst part. The suffering, and then not to be able to have medication enough to handle the pain at this level of my arachnoiditis, and then the kidney pain is just another whammy on it. But and I'm not used to it, see, so it takes some adaptation. So but little children, it's younger people, it's sad. Far worse. I've lived. I can't say it's been an easy ride of a life, but it's been a life. And that I didn't get my books written is on me, no one else. So I put that off. But wonderful people out there who need prayer and who are willing to pray, offer to pray for us. So strangers, it's lovely, it's beautiful. So I think heaven will be even that much, obviously, or even progressing in purgatory. It's all for a purpose, and it'll be good. Please pray for this situation. I did talk to my eldest daughter, and then she didn't respond Monday night when I was going to tell her, little things about this situation, that basically not many answers. And I won't see the nurse practitioner for another 6 weeks. And she also doesn't believe in dialysis. She says you'll just feel worse with it. People feel worse with it. She does. And I had read there's sort of a trend now, a train of thought of some people, some practitioners, not to do dialysis. Not unless you're, really at death's door. So my GFR is 22, and 15 is stage 5. So I'm really at the upper end of stage 4, which is terrible. And but no, nothing, no medicine, no nothing. So, and she said, don't go on the kidney diet, just do Mediterranean diet. But I'm going to modulate it. I researched the foods that are very bad for kidneys, and I won't eat those. And then I also went through and got out all my supplements. But I had some that I questioned, but she didn't know anything about that. So, and I can't really get into a doctor. It would be better if I could have a doctor, but I just have to accept, because there's not enough doctors. So they have all these nurse practitioners doing really the responsibilities of what doctors used to do. And in this area anyway, because of population boom, I guess is what they say, but I think it's true. There's a huge influx of people, so just see how it goes. But then I found out from my other daughter that the eldest, after I'd talked with her Friday evening, and she was so empathic and saying, well, we'll just wait till Monday, wait till Monday. And I said, will you help me? Because she's the executor, wanted to be a couple of years ago. And I said, help me figure out what I need to be doing about the house and all this. And figured it's going to be on who's ever the executor. Have them help me make these decisions. But, oh, yes, But she then called her sister and said she didn't want any part of it. And said, no part of me. So there was a little bit of tears in the car, in my truck this afternoon, just sort of accepting that. But then I realized this daughter is the most sensitive. And as a child, I didn't recognize how sensitive she was, how very, very sensitive. And her mother-in-law passed away in their home. Her husband took care of his mother beautifully and died in that home. And my daughter then found another home they moved to a few months later, maybe like 3 months later, 4 months, they were moved. And I think she's also squeamish of my children with my mystical events, that some things would go on in the house or telepathic things or stuff like that. It frightened her, even as a teenager and at college and after. So she's more squeamish. And then I realized, because I wrote to her and talked about all this, that I felt so sorry that she, felt that way, and that I knew I was a very imperfect mother. And it was a rough life, rough childhood for them, and very hard. And but then I realized, no, it might be just the sensitivity, that this may be just too much dealing with this illness that I have, and not knowing how it's going to end, or what the trajectory is. I think the nurse practitioner is hoping maybe it'll turn around. Not that my kidneys won't be damaged, very damaged, but sometimes I guess, your numbers can go back up, especially if it's an onset kind of a thing. But she thought it was the meloxicam, and for years that I've been on. But my pain doctor said no, that was stabilized just 6 months ago, that it would have been these dyes, contrast dyes. He says they're terrible, that would have jolted the kidneys and caused this damage, this severe injury. They've called it that. They've called it acute failure. They've called it acute injury. So anyway, just things to think about. So I wrote back to her and said, that it could also be, that she's, it was just too much sensitivity-wise, and how proud I am of her. She's brilliant, she's prudent, she's wise, and she's sensitive. She has many gifts, and she and her husband are doing very, very, very well, and their daughters are, and but I did express that, I haven't been able to visit, and she hasn't wanted, and I don't know, at one point in time she said her husband was okay with his mother, but not with hers. So, I don't know. There again, forbearance, and you have to accept these things. And I assured her my love would not alter, because I said, now's the time to be honest with me. That her sister had said these things, but would be good if she could say if that's truly how she felt, and why would help. But how sorry I was for, of course, if it was just being around me brought back terrible memories or something. So and based on the research I have done of adult children of single parent mother chronic pain, where the children grow up with the single parent, that it causes a lot of burnout as adults for them. It can really alter their ability to cope. And it can happen with people who are older and have elderly parents they're trying to take care of. they can burn out in a year or two easy and into the nursing home. Of course, I don't have money for that, but um, my other daughter would like to purchase this house. So I guess her sister said, fine, But I said, no, it has to be equal then. Um, we'll have to work that out. She agreed, even if she would pay them after I died. But we'll have to figure out how to get, I have a trust and all. So there's lots of things to consider when you really get down to brass tacks, when you get something that can shorten your life and be the cause of the end of it. So I've got lots of research to do with that, a lot of temporal stuff to do, which of course aren't my favorite things at all. That's why I, you know, had haven't even gotten rid of some stuff that I had gotten clothes so I would blend in at the cathedral back in the Midwest where the people dressed up a lot for Mass. I had gone to TJ Maxx and got sale items, but dressed up, blended in. So I've got those digs to get rid of, and at this point I'd better try to sell what I can because I want to send money to Father Vincent. I promised him that. I'm going to send him money, and another young man from Haiti who is doing well. He's worked so hard and become a registered nurse and getting married, but he helped me on the island a lot, and he deserves more. And so I'm going, when I am able and close to death, I'm going to write him a check also and help him out. And he's a spiritual son to me. He considers himself a spiritual son, and he's come here a couple of times to help me with things, and I paid him, but not nearly what he made as a nurse. He's just a very sweet, loving, very Christian, holy young man. He's now 30, but he's just a rare person like Father Vincent, filled with joy. And I've not been that kind of a person. It's a gift to have that kind of joy that is innate and natural. And some people have it, and what a gift, what a blessing. But anyway, that's the news, and I have allergies also, but fortunately the allergy pills aren't bad on the kidneys. When you do research stuff, I'll just give you some research tips, because the pain doctor today was saying, well, I can't. He says, you got to be careful. I said, yes, you got to be careful researching. You have to go over several sites, and if you can find medical abstracts, they're dog eat dog to read through them, but that's where you'll get your best information. But you also have to make sure that Googling, that you're not reading something that's connected with the manufacture of the medicine. Or like I looked up this Allegra Allerfex. It's the same as Allegra. I got it at Costco, and it was recommended by the pharmacist there to help my constant sinus issues I've had for a long time. I'm very, not allergic, but um, very sensitive to dust particles. So, and I'm a very sensitive person, very, very sensitive. I just had to get very, very toughened. Um, and somehow I think I expected my daughter, this very sensitive daughter, to just buck up and roll with the punches earlier on. And she couldn't. So, and I've told her that before, that I miss that. I miss noticing just how sensitive. And, we had to up and move sometimes, and it was hard on her. And her first day at school when we moved to the Midwest, freshman in high school, and later on, my cousin had told me how she had cried at school at lunchtime, and she did have a cousin that she was in school with who befriended her and introduced her, but it was hard, very hard on her. Even though they all wanted to move, but they blocked it out. All but one has blocked out why we moved, why we had to. So Anyway, this allergy medicine, though, several of the sites would say it was okay, but they were connected with the manufacturer. So you have to really read through and be on the lookout for little loopholes, and then double check it again on other sites, and uh, go to their competitor and see if it lists it also as okay. Um, so takes time, but I did decide that uh, I haven't had any indication from God that He wants me to suffer more than necessary. So I'm doing what I can. I'm trying to eat more. It's not easy. And trying to do what I need to be doing to get my affairs in better order. And it would be better if I could die in the Midwest, in the state I live, because that's where my trust and will is valid. Here, I'll have to spend a lot of money to get it made for this state, which seems sort of too bad, because then it'll cost more to be cremated here and mailed back than if I just be cremated back there, where I already have some money down on in the funeral home where I'll be, where my and then I have a plot back there. My grandfather bought lots of plots back in the day when all the family was buried at the same place. Now, like, all my kids will be buried where their ashes scattered somewhere. Maybe they won't be buried in the ground. I don't know. But I'll be right beside my dad and on the other side of my mother. My mother comes and my dad, my aunts and uncles on my dad's side, and, well, except for the ones that are in the Arlington National Cemetery. An aunt and uncle are there. But my grandparents on my dad's side, so it'd be sort of fun. But I will say there have been times of shock, and and also and just the level of pain I was dealing with earlier today got to me, and just the sorrow of um, my daughter hasn't responded to what I wrote to her, so probably true, and for whatever reason she isn't handling it and doesn't want to handle it. It's too much for her, so I have to understand that. And I did also write, though, because I felt I needed to, is that I had so wanted to be able to be back there and spend more time getting to know my granddaughters. But I had lived there an hour or so away when the granddaughters were born, and up to, I think the oldest one was maybe 5, and then I've lived near the other daughter for less years than I lived with the other. But um, I had sort of wanted to go back there. That was where but I'd hoped, but that's not going to happen, I don't think. So um, his other daughter's willing to uh, let me be in here or something. So that I'm grateful for that, as long as it's best for her, the situation, because I think she's planning to stay in this area. So anyway, temporal considerations and uh, uh, toughing it out. And I did tell Jesus tonight, that if you want me to try to stay longer, to suffer more for the good of souls and for my own purification, that I'm willing to do that. Um, Thy will be done. I've said that plenty. But I wanted to also mention my horrible, flawed ability to forbear. And I really hurt someone's feelings the other night in my last video on forbearance. Or, yeah, I think it was included in the forbearance. I gave some examples. And I talked to somebody who's a viewer in that video and said, you've got to forgive, and let go. And the person, I really got really upset, very angry, and left some comments that were very angry and were the opposite of forbearance. I did remove some of the more angry ones because I was trying to protect her a little bit, because I knew she was very upset and angry with me. And I think she's probably dropped off watching the videos, but I did feel terrible. And I had written to her, um, even after I did the video, realizing that she might not at all be at that point yet. And she isn't at the point of forbearance of others, so, or of letting go or forgiving in a situation. So, and doesn't want to stop grieving and doesn't want to get over some anger. So, that's part of forbearance, is to understand where people are and not, but I saw through it. I saw through from early on with some comments, because I do that. I can't help it. I see through things. Sometimes I do, other times I can be very obtuse. But in this particular case, I saw through. And I can be jump ahead too much and um, lay out what needs to be done. I could be too hard, or I don't know if hard's the word, too high of expectations. But I have that of people. I know they can do it, and then also if I have wasted time and done something the wrong way, I don't want them to do that either. I want them to regress faster than I did, and not make the errors. So I did put the gas pedal down on the person a little bit, and it didn't work out well. So, and I did feel terrible, and I thought, there's me with forbearance. I wasn't forbearing enough. But then again, I thought, what do we do in cases like that sometimes? I don't know. We're to forbear in love. But there's a thing called tough love, where if someone is of an age that they do know better, and they're espousing that they know better, but yet they're not, what do? Do you lay out the situation to them? And I don't know if you put down a more tough love with forbearance. So I'm interested in that. Do you do tough love? Or do you just forbear and not say anything to the person? Not challenge them spiritually. That's what I did. I challenged spiritually. And the person didn't like it at all. Not at all. And so, yeah, I'm curious about that. But I am sorry for hurting the person's feelings and causing them to then react with anger. And got into an outright refuse. I'm not going to. I don't care. Not going to. Stop grieving. Not going to. So, and I don't care. You can't help someone who puts a block up. So, then what do? Pray. You pray. And that's part of forbearance, is praying, knowing when, and we'll have other fruit and gifts of the Holy Spirit that would take me further than forbearance into more understanding and knowing prudence, when to not speak and pray instead, silent prayer, and don't challenge someone to try to spiritually grow. Let them find out on their own. But that takes discernment and prayer there. Do you let go and let people not be challenged, or do you challenge? So these are questions in helping others that we have to understand what's best to do and what isn't. Jesus challenged. He had a beautiful gift of parables, and the way he could tell people what was beautifully put. But I didn't have that. I upset the person. So it's good to develop some kind of a means of communicating that does not cause the other, that is forbearing with the person, but yet teaches, and challenges them to rise up to another level of spiritual life. That say if the person suffers a lot, and you're trying to help them to learn to manage their suffering through prayer or through other things, and they write back, well, it doesn't work, I can't do it. When they can do it, they don't want to, but have to know when to let go and let a person then not improve. At least not then, maybe not ever, or maybe later on in their lives, maybe 30 years from now. So, because I came back to thinking, well, maybe it wasn't so bad to challenge, but yes, because when it upsets someone, then the person really turned off. So, I didn't make progress with the person. I wasn't helpful. So that's not forbearance, I suppose. I don't think so. At least I'm going to call it off on myself that I wasn't forbearing. So, okay, well, I haven't even looked at what's next after forbearance. Isn't that terrible? It's been a busy 3 days. So I will work on something and hopefully to have a nice video tomorrow of something worthwhile. And I'll keep you posted. I should be getting another new set of numbers, and they'll come to my laptop. Like I say, I don't see this nurse again for six weeks. I don't see, I think it's a DO or a PA till April then. So I would prefer having a doctor. I asked the pain doctor, he's going to try to see if he can get me in with one, but probably not. So we forbear. God bless his real presence in us, and we'll keep praying for others and for handling what we need to handle with our temporal affairs. It's a good time to get things handled, I think. And keeping on in God's name. And ponder what's coming. I still get excited about it. And it may be put off for a while now. I don't know, but I'm heading in that direction regardless at my age. So we'll keep praying on loving others as God loves. And I've been praying for a gift of putting words in a way that does not cause others to feel nailed down at all. Tough love that is done without the toughness. Maybe even to be able to give parables or examples that are don't hit home. I don't know how, what, but I've asked God for a gift like that, like Jesus had. That, of course, he had people not happy with him, didn't he? And Paul did. I always sort of got a kick when, Paul, one of his great statements was, to be all for all people. But he wasn't. They cut off his head. So there's always going to be somebody we're not going to please when we say things. But I could have just prayed and not said. So there's that. Well, have a good evening, and God bless you all. And thanks so much for prayers. But please let's pray for Leo and Father Vincent and Anton and Teresa, who is a viewer, would like prayers. And I think for all of us, for our spiritual lives. And there's still a woman who stopped her cancer treatments, as far as they know, and because it's very, very painful even to have the treatment. And is a young woman and evidently decided to just live her life and let go, that the treatments themselves were too painful. So I don't know what's happened with her, but pray for her. Carrie Ann is her name, and her mother. She may already be passed on, but her mother could use prayers too. So until later.